Hey Glow Girls, Markette Sheppard here from Glowstream TV, and I am so excited to bring you my conversation with internationally known entrepreneur Tina Wells. You may know her from marketing. She started a successful company at the age of 16, but she's also a best-selling author of middle grade books. You may have heard of Mackenzie Blue. Well, Mackenzie is back in the Zee Files series, and Tina Wells is here to tell us more. Tina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Markette. I am so thrilled to be here, and I cannot wait to get into this conversation.
Well, I'm so excited because I wish when I was 10, 11, 12 years old that there was a Zee Files for me. Tell me about your desire to write characters who are strong, women of color, curious, and empowering for not just girls reading this of color, but girls all around the world of all backgrounds.
So I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and one thing I loved about growing up in the 80s and 90s was I felt like we had really strong girls as our heroines at that time. So even if I was watching, Saved by the Bell or Blossom, or I really felt like those girls were able to be quirky. They weren't so focused on having to be super beautiful. They just were themselves. Their bodies were healthy, and they felt like real girls. And so I think first and foremost, I wanted to create real girls that all girls could have as icons who had real life issues and problems, but who were also just trying to find their way. And so, I was a lover of the Ramona books, right? Just feeling like Ramona was like me. And I think that that's something when a girl doesn't look like you necessarily, but you share, some characteristics, or you're in similar places in your life, that you want that feeling. And now I'm very dedicated to representation in middle grade fiction and making sure that all girls can find girls who look like them in the characters that they love.
And the girls in your books, the characters, Z, they have very relatable issues that they deal with.
Yeah, so in the new series, we see my beloved Z from Mackenzie Blue. She is leaving sunny California and she's moving to London. Her father has gotten a new job. Her mom, when we left Z and Mackenzie Blue, her mom had just had twins, Connor and Phoebe. And so now the entire family is moving to London, minus her older brother who is starting college. And so you can imagine, for a girl who's used to California, she's making that transition, and they decide that she's going to go to boarding school that was recommended to her parents by one of her best friends, Jasper. And so they're going to be reunited. So if you know Jasper from Mackenzie Blue, he's now in the Zee Files, but she's a little bit older. She's starting to struggle with some anxiety and some attention and learning issues. And so we see her really go through that journey to figure out, how she's going to fit in, and also that kind of introspective journey around what's really happening and going on inside of her too.
And when I hear the story about Z moving from sunny California to London, just knowing her background, she's a biracial girl going to London, I can't help but think of Duchess Megan and how much the two may be alike.
It's funny. One of my favorite scenes in the first book is when Z receives her uniform, who's designed in real life by a friend of mine, Misha Nunu. And, the scene was so fun, where she's like in her kind of ripped jeans and sneakers. So it's like on the bottom, she's California girl, and she's got this like very proper blazer on, and she's just looking at her mom in the mirror, like, what is happening? And I love, in general, I love juxtapositions. I just love it. There are things that make me laugh, right? When you just see situations where you're like, how does this quite fit? But when I thought about my Z, who's like, Z is quirky, she loves upcycling, making her own clothes. So she, exploring Z's relationship with her roommate, Jamila, who's very prim and proper, who kind of looks at Z like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I just think that that's like creating fun moments for the reader. But when I thought about why London, my background is in market research, and in doing a lot of research and talking to kids and listening, for some reason, tweens seem to be very fascinated by London. Obviously we can talk about, I love what I heard years ago, the Markle Sparkle, right? So we can talk about that fascination, where it must come from. But I knew that two things I knew about my reader was that she was totally fascinated by the idea of boarding school, and that speaks to a life stage, right, of still being attached to your parents, but wanting to start to feel some independence. So I knew that the boarding school element would provide a little aspiration or like escapism. And then London, is one of those cities right now where there's just a desire to be there. And so, definitely interested to hear about the comparisons. But, I think for me, it's really about taking that California way of life for a girl who's grown up with that, and then placing her in this new environment. And it speaks to how I think kids at that age, our children, when they're going to middle school or having a big life event, they do feel like they're being kind of taken out of their comfort zone and put in a situation where they totally, may not relate to it. And so that was really the purpose in me really wanting to change up the environment to show that Zee too goes through these transitions.
So many girls need to hear someone who sounds like them, see someone who looks like them, and the Zee Files delivers. And you are launching the book exclusively at Target and at Target.com. So it's just a click away, really, for anyone who's interested in continuing Mackenzie Blue's adventures.
Yeah, I can't tell you how fun. I was in Target earlier today. I had to pick up some personal care items, and I always, I was in a different Target, and I always love to just head over to Fiction and say, do you have the book? How many do you have? So it's just unbelievable that, my readers can get their books at Target, and that just to see how they're merchandised, a store that I have obviously loved, and it's been a huge part of my life and just our everyday life, right? It's like, that's where we go. And to be able to go there and see the books, it's just there. It's not one time where I'm not like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So I still am just so excited that those books get to live at Target.
There are 3 books in the series that I know of. Can you tell me about, is there a visit to Paris?
Yeah. So in the second book, the book that just launched in Target last month, Zee does finally get to go visit Allie in Paris. So we have that fun scene. And then the third book that's coming this summer, it's coming out in June. It's really interesting. Zee starts, maybe gets herself involved in a relationship that she doesn't actually love. And so that's really fun to explore. My writing partner and I are just finished the 4th book that's coming in early November, and it's called A Very Malibu Vacay. And so I will tell you that Zee is going to be going back to California. And so for those of you who know about the Mackenzie Blue series, it's going to be interesting to kind of bring some characters back that you might be familiar with. So that has just been, so fun to dig into.
Tina Wells, thank you so much for sharing about your new book series, the Zee Files. Tell us where we can find out more about you and your new adventures.
For any news I have, you can go to tinawells.com. I also have a weekly newsletter there that shares tips for aspiring entrepreneurs, and on my Instagram, tinawells_.
Thank you so much for joining us on Glowstream TV. Best of luck with the new book series.
Thank you, Markette. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
To have your product, service, or business featured as one of the Glow brands, contact us at info@glowstreamtv.com. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels at Glowstream TV.